People often talk about the purchase of Alaska. They wonder if it was a good idea. Many people at the time thought it was a terrible one. They called it Seward's Folly. And William Henry Seward was the Secretary of State for President Andrew Johnson. He was the one who pushed for the purchase. The year was 1867. The United States bought this huge piece of land from Russia. And Russia was the seller. Why did Russia want to sell it? It was a long way from their capital. It was hard to manage. They worried about losing it in a war. They thought Britain might try to take it, because Russia and Britain were rivals. Selling it to the United States made more sense. It gave them some money. It also created a friendly buffer with Britain. The price was $7.2 million. This might not sound like much today, but back then, it was a significant sum. For context, the entire U.S. federal budget was much smaller. Seward was very keen on buying Alaska. He saw it as part of America's destiny. He believed the U.S. should expand across the continent. This idea was called Manifest Destiny. It had driven earlier land grabs. Think of the Louisiana Purchase, or the land taken from Mexico. Seward wanted more. He saw the Pacific Ocean as key to America's future. But many people in America did not see it that way. When the news broke, it was met with a lot of jokes. Their newspapers had a field day. They called it Seward's Icebox, or Walrussia. People saw Alaska as a frozen, barren wasteland. They imagined only snow and ice. They pictured polar bears and seals. They didn't think there was anything useful there. The money seemed wasted. The country was still recovering from the Civil War. There were many problems at home. Many felt the government should focus on these problems. Buying a distant, frozen land seemed silly. It seemed like a luxury the country could not afford. Some people even thought it was a plot. They wondered if Seward or others were getting kickbacks. Such thoughts were not uncommon in politics then. The Senate had to approve the treaty. It was a tough sell. Charles Sumner, a powerful senator, helped a lot. He made a long speech. He talked about the potential resources. He mentioned furs and fisheries. He spoke of the strategic location. He argued for its future value. Still, the vote was close. It passed by just 2 votes. This showed how much doubt there was. Even after the treaty passed, the negative feelings continued. People still joked about it. They saw it as a place of eternal winter, a place with no people. No trees, no real value. It was a national joke. Seward, though, kept his belief. He had a vision. He saw beyond the immediate criticism. He saw a future where Alaska would be important. But for many years, his vision seemed completely wrong. The territory just sat there. It remained largely unpopulated by Americans. The initial perception stuck. It was a foolish mistake. A massive waste of money. That was the common wisdom for a long time. The name Seward's Folly was a constant reminder of this public judgment. So, people laughed at the idea of buying Alaska. They thought it was a bad deal. Seward had good reasons. He wasn't just randomly buying land. He had a clear vision for America's future. He saw Alaska fitting into that vision. One big reason was Manifest Destiny. This belief was strong in America. It meant the United States was meant to expand. It was supposed to stretch from coast to coast, and then even beyond. Seward was a big believer in this. He thought America should grow. He thought it should become a major world power. Owning Alaska was part of that plan. It added a huge chunk of land. It made the U.S. larger. Another key reason was geopolitics. This is about how countries interact on a global scale. Russia owned Alaska, but Russia was far away. It was a European power. Seward thought it was better for the U.S. to own North American land. He didn't want a European power so close to the continent. He saw it as a strategic move. Getting Russia out was important. It reduced potential conflicts. It strengthened America's position in the Pacific. Speaking of the Pacific, that was a huge part of Seward's thinking. He believed the future of trade was in the Pacific. He saw America as a bridge to Asia. Alaska was a stepping stone. It offered ports and coaling stations. These were important for ships. Ships needed coal to travel long distances. Alaska could support trade routes to Japan, China, and other Asian markets. Seward thought this would make America rich. He believed it would make America powerful. He also considered natural resources. People often say Seward didn't know about the gold or oil. That's partly true. He didn't know the exact extent of those resources, but he knew Alaska had fur. It had fish, it had timber. Russian fur traders had been there for a long time. These resources had value. He likely suspected there could be more. Explorers and trappers often found new things. Seward was thinking about the long term. He wasn't just looking for immediate returns. He was thinking centuries ahead. He also looked at history. America had bought other territories. The Louisiana Purchase was huge. Many people thought it was a waste at the time. They called it Jefferson's Folly, but it turned out to be one of the best deals ever. It doubled the size of the country, it gave access to vast resources. Seward saw Alaska in the same light. He believed it was another chance to expand cheaply. He thought future generations would thank him. Seward wasn't just buying land, he was buying a future. He was buying a strategic advantage. He was buying potential, he was betting on America's growth, he was betting on America's ingenuity. He knew it wouldn't be an instant payoff, he understood the criticism, but he had conviction. He felt it was the right thing to do for the country. His vision was grand. It was forward-looking. It was beyond what most people could see in 1867. He understood that sometimes great opportunities don't look great at first glance. They need time to develop. They need people to explore them. They need the right circumstances. He was playing a long game. Most people, caught up in their immediate concerns, could only see the short term. They saw the frozen, empty space. Seward saw a vast territory with immense potential, waiting to be discovered and utilized. He believed in the inherent value of land and strategic position. He thought this deal was a bargain, even if it wasn't obvious to everyone else. After the purchase, Alaska became part of the United States, but for a long time, not much changed there. The immediate years after 1867 were slow, very slow. The United States government didn't really know what to do with it. It was so far away, it was so vast, it was so different from other territories. For years, Alaska was basically ignored. It didn't even get a proper government right away. It was managed by the military for a while, then by the Treasury Department, then by the Navy. It was a legal and administrative mess. There were very few Americans living there. The existing Russian settlers mostly left. Native Alaskans continued their traditional lives, but there was little American presence. The perception of it being a worthless place continued, and it was easy to see why. There were no booming cities, no big gold strikes immediately, no grand farms popping up. It was still mostly wilderness. The harsh climate made settlement difficult. Building roads or towns was a huge challenge. There was very little investment. People still called it Seward's Folly. It seemed like the jokes were right. The money seemed truly wasted. Some people did go there. Trappers went for furs. Whalers operated off its coasts. Missionaries went to set up churches and schools. A few adventurous prospectors tried their luck, but it was not a mass migration. It wasn't like the California gold rush. It was slow. It was tough. Most people who went had to be very resilient. They faced extreme isolation. They faced extreme weather. The government did send some surveys. These teams tried to map the land. They tried to identify resources, but it was a huge task. The land was so big. Much of it was uncharted. Access was difficult. The reports often highlighted the challenges. They spoke of the rugged terrain. They spoke of the cold. This didn't help change public opinion. Alaska remained this distant, cold, empty place in most people's minds. For decades, Alaska remained a territory in name only. It was a place on the map, but it didn't feel like a true part of the United States. It was not bringing in tax money. It was not sending representatives to Congress. It was a drain, if anything. The cost of administering it, however minimal, was more than any revenue it generated. This added to the sense of folly. Why did we buy this? What was the point? Even in the late 19th century, people debated its value. Some suggested selling it. Others thought it should just be left alone. It was seen as a white elephant, a costly possession that brought no benefit. The original critics seemed to be vindicated. The land wasn't fertile. It wasn't easily settled. It wasn't bringing in riches. It wasn't a strategic hotspot yet. It was just a lot of cold land. The initial jokes about Seward's Icebox and Seward's Folly stuck around for good reason. They reflected a reality that many Americans experienced or perceived for a very long time. It took a long time for that perception to change. The seeds of its future importance were there, but they were deeply buried under ice and snow, waiting for the right moment to sprout. The idea of Alaska being a foolish mistake lasted for decades, but then, things started to change. The tide began to turn around the end of the 19th century. It wasn't one big thing. It was a series of discoveries. These discoveries slowly but surely revealed Alaska's true worth. The biggest game changer was gold. In 1896, gold was discovered in the Klondike region. This wasn't strictly in Alaska. It was just over the border in Canada's Yukon Territory. But the easiest way to get to the Klondike was through Alaska. Thousands of prospectors rushed north. They came through Alaskan ports like Skagway and Dia. This brought a huge influx of people and money into Alaska. It led to new towns. It led to new businesses. It made people look at Alaska differently. And it wasn't just the Klondike. Gold was soon found in Alaska itself. Places like Nome and Fairbanks became boomtowns. Suddenly, Alaska was not barren. It was rich. People were finding actual treasure. This completely changed the narrative. The Icebox was full of gold. The Folly was a gold mine. This brought real attention to the territory. After the gold rush, other resources came into focus. Copper was discovered in vast amounts. The Kennecott copper mine became famous. It produced huge quantities of copper. Fishing became a major industry. Salmon and halibut were abundant. Canneries sprung up along the coast. And timber, too, was harvested in some areas. Alaska started contributing real wealth to the U.S. economy. It was no longer just a frozen wasteland. It was a land of natural riches. The population grew. Infrastructure, though still basic, began to develop. Roads and railways were built to connect resource sites to ports. These efforts were often difficult, but the economic incentive was powerful. The federal government also began to invest more. They started to see Alaska as more than just an outpost. They saw its potential. Then came the 20th century. Alaska's strategic importance became clear. During World War II, Japan attacked the Aleutian Islands. These are part of Alaska. This showed how vital Alaska was for national defense. It was a front line. The U.S. built airfields and military bases there. Alaska became a staging ground for operations in the Pacific. It proved to be critical for protecting the North American continent. After World War II, the Cold War began. Alaska's location became even more important. It was right across the Bering Strait from the Soviet Union. It became a key point for monitoring Soviet activity. Radar stations, missile defense sites, and Air Force bases were built. Alaska was no longer just a remote territory. It was a vital part of America's defense strategy. It was a bulwark against communism. And then oil. In the late 1960s, a massive oil field was discovered at Prudhoe Bay. This was one of the largest oil discoveries in North American history. It led to the construction of the Trans-Alaska Pipeline System. This project was huge. It brought in immense wealth. It created thousands of jobs. Alaska became a major oil producer. This transformed the territory's economy. It also gave it significant political clout. Finally, in 1959, Alaska became the 49th state. This was a long time coming. It showed that Alaska had matured. It had developed. It was a full and equal part of the United States. The perception had completely shifted. From a frozen folly, it had become a land of incredible resources and strategic value. The jokes about Seward's icebox faded away. They were replaced by an understanding of Alaska's immense and undeniable importance. So, was the purchase of Alaska a foolish mistake? Looking back from today, the answer is a very clear no. It was not foolish at all. It was one of the best real estate deals in history. The $7.2 million paid for Alaska was a tiny amount compared to what it has given back. Think about the sheer size of it first. Alaska is enormous. It is more than twice the size of Texas. It is about 1/5 the size of the entire continental United States. For that land area, the price per acre was incredibly low. It was about 2 cents an acre. You can't even buy a piece of gum for 2 cents now. To get that much land for so little money is astounding. Then consider the economic value. Alaska is incredibly rich in natural resources. It is a major oil and natural gas producer. These resources have generated billions upon billions of dollars for the U.S. economy. It has vast mineral deposits, too, beyond the gold and copper. There are huge amounts of zinc, lead, and other valuable minerals. The fishing industry in Alaska is one of the most productive in the world. It provides a huge share of the seafood consumed in America and beyond. This generates more billions. Even timber and tourism contribute significantly. Tourists come from all over the world to see its stunning natural beauty. Beyond the money, there is the geopolitical value. Alaska's location is strategically vital. It gives the United States a strong presence in the Arctic. This region is becoming more important due to climate change and new shipping routes. Alaska also provides a critical strategic outpost in the Pacific. It is still a key area for defense. Its proximity to Russia remains a factor in international relations. Owning Alaska means the U.S. has a firmer grip on global influence. And there's the natural beauty, the wilderness, the national parks. These are priceless. They offer unparalleled conservation and recreation opportunities. This value is harder to put a dollar figure on, but it is very real. It contributes to the global environment and to the human spirit. It's true that the initial skepticism was understandable. In 1867, most people didn't know what was there. They couldn't see the oil or the gold. They only saw a cold, distant land. The immediate benefits weren't obvious. The country was recovering from war, so calling it Seward's Folly was a natural reaction to the unknown. It was a reaction to the lack of instant gratification. People thought it was a gamble that was sure to lose. But Seward and others had a longer view. They saw the potential, they had faith in future discoveries. They understood the strategic gains. They knew that sometimes the biggest payoffs take time. They were right. The purchase of Alaska was a gamble, but it was one that paid off spectacularly. It turned out to be an incredibly wise investment. So, no, it was not a foolish mistake. It was a far-sighted decision. It secured an enormous amount of land and resources. It expanded American power and influence. It has yielded benefits far beyond the initial cost. Seward's critics were loud in their time, but history has proven Seward right. His folly turned out to be a stroke of genius. It was a testament to looking beyond the immediate horizon.